Well, I'll say this much: Xbox certainly set some kind of record. This has got to be some record somewhere, right, guys? If you haven't heard, Xbox has decided to lay off just close to 5,000 employees. Goodness gracious. Which is about, I think, 2% of the workforce entirely for Microsoft, I think someone said, which is just goodness gracious. If you haven't heard, there's been a massive reveal from Xbox where they're doing a massive, they're calling it resetting of Xbox, honestly. And this has been kind of headed by the new CEO, Asha Shawarma. I feel like that was incorrect. Hold on. Asya Shawarma, I think. Or Sharma. I keep. Sorry,
I
I
think
keep
it's
wanting to.
Sharma.
It's Sharma. It's Sharma. Definitely Sharma. But for some reason, my mind keeps wanting to say shawarma for some reason. It's
Swarm.
too, it's too phonetically similar, all right? It's my mistake to miss shawarma. If she, Sharma! God, there I go again. My
To be
mistake.
fair, we were talking a lot of Warhammer type stuff, so he might have Swarm on the mind.
Not swarm. Shawarma. Like,
Yeah, I know,
the
but
dish
you,
shawarma.
it's that's where you're leaning. Anyways, the new
Yeah.
head of
So,
Xbox
apologies to
has
Miss Sharma
announced
if
all
she
this
ever
for
sees
us.
this. But anyways, yes, this has been led by the new CEO of Xbox, Miss Sharma, and it's been all over the place. There's a bunch of stuff that came out of this, from the VP leaving to the unions kind of getting up in arms. We'll see where that goes. To just the massive restructurings that come on. We'll not get into all the finer details because there's just so much stuff that came out of this. I mean, like I said, almost 5K employees got laid off. That's gonna make waves. But we're just going to try and cover the highlights, right? So this kind of all comes to us by a massive article from Xbox Wire from, again, Miss Sharma herself, where she goes over kind of what the heck is going on here. And basically it comes down to, I'll be damned, a CEO just being blatant with the public, money. Like, genuinely. I don't mean that to be kind of funny, because genuinely most CEOs, and I was even telling Justin before the show, right? When most CEOs go out and do stuff like this, when they announce massive layoffs and stuff like that, they tend to either hand wave it away or kind of glance over the subject or kind of do some kind of performative kind of, oh, it's about the players and some grand vision, and they try to say anything that doesn't say we need to make the balance sheet look better. But to her credit, Miss Sharma came out and was like, yeah, the balance sheet sucks, so we need to make it better. She goes into the exact reasonings and exactly why. Like, for example, they're actually anywhere from 3 to 10% behind comparable brands and publishing businesses, so that's not good. And as well as the fact that I think that she also said, yeah, they lost 64 cents for every dollar they've invested, so also not good. So yeah, the balance sheet sucks, and they need to be better at it. On a side note, in another article, again I'll post it down below, she kind of alludes to the reason that Xbox is in such a crummy state at the moment is kind of Spencer's fault, which, in fairness, is kind of true. Not entirely. Like, I hate to put too much blame at the feet of Spencer, but in this case, it kind of makes sense from a business perspective, right? It being more political, basically, in that article, she basically says that there was a lot of hope that Spencer was putting into things like Game Pass and stuff like that, as well as the big acquisition deals and stuff like that, hoping that those will all pay off. They didn't really pay off in the way people hoping. The deals just became too big money problems, but specifically Game Pass itself just wasn't there. Like, Game Pass has become too expensive, and eventually it's just become too. Like, I think herself, she even said when she first came to Amos, Sharma, that is, that Game Pass has just become too expensive. It's become too expensive, but they needed to make it expensive to keep up with Game Pass itself. And unfortunately, making it too expensive has made it unattractive, and so it's just become a self destroying cycle. So they need to move away from Game Pass, which she's doing. And again, part of that whole idea to get a more healthy Xbox is this massive restructuring. So that's kind of the over under of the reasoning. What exactly is happening as a result? Well, as I said, almost 5K employees are just getting the axe. Some now, some later, some already. Like I said, lots of stuff. And it's pretty much the entire Xbox division. Id, for example, software, I believe, had their entire workforce sliced in half, like literally just sliced in half, or even more so, perhaps. With, I think, They themselves, I don't have this article down there, but I think I've read an article that basically said pretty much all of their old veterans, beyond like one that have been there since the beginning, are now gone. So, yeah, major stuff is going on there. They seem to be the one that were hit the hardest, but again, that might vary depending on how the the layoffs then eventually shake out. But another thing that has come out of this, which is also pretty big, which is also the fact that it seems that they're spinning off the divisions, which is another kind of thing we can kind of thank here. Not to give the CEOs too much credit, but to her credit, like I said, I'm continuously eating my words when I said that when she first got the position that she would just crash and burn with Xbox. I genuinely thought that when, considering her background as a former AI executive and all, I'm not okay with AI, that her being put up was just going to be push the AI agenda higher. But surprisingly, nothing has come of AI, and she's been very competent. So, like I said, every time she does something, she continues to prove me wrong, and I was wrong. So there you go. It's actually PlayStation who ended up crashing and burning, which who knew, right? Anyways, into her credit, as I was going to say, despite the massive layoffs and the kind of little refinagling they've done, none of the actual games they've had in development or studios in their disposal, more importantly, have been closed or shut down. Usually, when mass layoffs like this stuff happen, delays get announced, studios get the axe, just a bunch of house cleaning that nobody really likes. Surprisingly, none of that's happened. Yeah, some schedules, I think, for example, Elder Scrolls Online, which also had its team just really gutted, has had to re-move around their schedule when it comes to their releases, I believe they've said. But nothing has been delayed as far as I know. And as the studios themselves, like Arcane, Austin, and of course things like oh my goodness, why can't I think of anything right now? Blizzard, there's one for you. None of those have been shut down. Instead, what they're going to do in the actual piece from the Wire article is she actually spells out that they're planning to spin off those studios. So studios like Compulsion Games, Double Fine Productions will return to management and transition to, in quote, independent studios with their IP catalogs and run away for their next games. Ninja Theory and Undead Labs have entered teams to join new ownership with funding to complete, and grow Senna and State of Decay, so games they have in production. And in France, Arcane's management is beginning required consultation, so they're kind of talking with them about what's going to happen with its work council to review potential strategic options. So they're still trying to figure out what they're going to do with Arcane. But by the sounds of it, instead of just closing the studios down wholesale, they're basically giving them the chance to walk. By the sounds of it, I'm curious to see how that'll work from a legal angle, because will they just completely give those studios the ability to just walk away from Xbox, or will they kind of put them, as I was kind of telling Justin before the show, the same kind of position they were in with Sony prior to, or excuse me, Bungie had with Sony prior to everything with Bungie and Sony happening, where they were a part of Sony, but they had pretty much the autonomy to do whatever they wanted. Maybe they'll be completely individual, maybe not. It seems like a lot of them will be completely by themselves. So yeah, a lot of the studios are just allowed to leave. And again, this itself seems to be a result of kind of the same symptoms that Sony is suffering from, where the pandemic money just came in and everyone was just scooping up studios left, right, and center and consolidate, and they just no longer have the budget sheet to really work with that, so they gotta let stuff go. That said, the biggest cards in their deck, that being things like Activision, Bethesda, ZeniMax, Blizzard, King, Mojang, and of course Xbox Game Studios itself, will of course all be retained by them specifically. So they will all still be within Xbox's individual umbrella, which makes sense, right? Why would you give those away? Another thing that they've actually said is that Mojang and King, which are part of that list, will now report to her, i.e., for some reason I feel like I'll mispronounce her name by trying to say it and remember again, Miss Sharma, directly. So I guess they're now reporting to the boss directly. So she says this is that they'll bring critical geographic, demographic, and differentiation to Xbox. So we'll see what comes of that. Secondly, it seems that they're also trying to remove the excess layers of management. She actually points out that depending on where you worked, some teams has had as many as 14 layers of management. Good God. 14 layers of management. It
Which
kind of
goes and puts into perspective why some things took a really long time when it came to Microsoft and Xbox.
Yeah, to quote a certain YouTube pundit I heard talking about this as well, imagine this scenario where it's like, okay, you want to implement something, then you talk to your boss, who's got to talk to this guy, 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 who's got to talk to this
A
guy, yada 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 yada
bunch of
yada.
layers
Maybe you
of
get an
approval just to get one little thing.
yeah, maybe you get an answer back in like a month. So no surprise it was taking so long. So, as part of this consolidation and redistribution, they're trying to chop things down to as little layers as possible, to no more, in her own words, than five, and where possible, three. So, yeah, going to be a lot more, direct. Not, a dozen plus layers of extra management to go through, which hopefully that'll see quicker change when it comes to their stuff. Anyways, a bunch of end of stuff came out of this as well. Like I said, a bunch of stuff. I won't go into, like I said, too many details because it's a lot, like I said. And we still have stuff like the unions to go through because I didn't even mention them yet. So yeah, the unions, as you can imagine, don't like this. Turns out when you lay close to 5,000 people off, the unions get a little uppity. Shocking, I know. And they have said that they will take any legal action that they deem necessary to keep the people's jobs as much as they can. Basically, if they smell a rat, they're going to do something. They haven't said they will yet, but they will if they have to, is basically what they're saying here. And by the sounds of the article, by Aftermath, again linked in the description, it seems like the relationship between unions and the game companies, especially Xbox, have been contentious to say the least, and this is definitely not helping things. But, the unions are definitely going to be watching all of these layoffs closely to see where there's any case for wrongful dismissal, let's say. So maybe we'll see a legal lawsuit from the unions come out of this. We'll see.
We'll see.
Anyways, that's the union side covered. Not going to get too much into that, because again, that's all speculative for now by the sounds of it. Another interesting point that came out of this is the VP of Xbox, Kevin LeChapelle, I believe I pronounced that right. Forgive me, monsieur, if I did not, is also apparently adding his name to the list of individuals leaving Xbox with these mass layoffs, voluntarily by the sounds of it. So yeah, the VP of Xbox is just stepping down. Saying himself in a LinkedIn post, I will add my name to the list of people who were laid off today. So yeah. He himself is actually a 37-year veteran of Microsoft, so excuse me, himself. So yeah, old, tenured in Xbox. He himself started, I think, in 1987. I think I'm doing math right here, something around there. And he actually apparently worked on the backwards compatibility side of Xbox as well. He was the head of that team, I believe. So yeah, he did some pretty big stuff for Xbox when it came to the whole just stuff they've done in general. Backwards compatibility was a big thing, so it's a damn shame to see him go. Why exactly he's going? Not entirely sure. It could just be that he's seeing this as a good time to retire from the industry. I mean, 37 years is a long time to get in the industry, and I imagine being a VP of Xbox with a 37-year head count is a pretty solid good pension. Then again, quitting might neglect him from the pension, but who knows? Maybe his contract has something nice in the stock options department. Who knows? Regardless, he's leaving as well. So, yeah, another big name from Xbox is stepping down. Doesn't seem like there's any animosity here, but then again, with high rollers in the industry, there never does seem to be on the surface. So, who knows? Maybe there's something we don't know. Again, we'll see. But I wouldn't put my finger on it, honestly. But yeah, that seems to be the over-under when it comes to Xbox. It's a mass house cleaning for Xbox, and again, to Miss Sharma's credit, she's being honest, it's a money thing. Which, again, most of the time you only tend to see that when it comes to executives in the boardroom, when it comes to their investors, right? They'll say it in an investor's call, or they'll imply in the investor's call at the very least that it's kind of a money thing. And then when it comes to the PR and the cameras, they'll give some performative answer like, oh, it's for the betterment of the players, or oh, we're rethinking about how we'll go forward in the future, yada, 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 yada. They never actually
Retooling.
yeah, the retooling, right? They'll give some performative bullshit. They'll never actually say it's a money problem, which, let's be honest, we all know it's a bloody money problem. It's always a money problem with these people. But hey, to her credit, it's a money problem, and she's being open with it, which has to count for something in this industry. I'll give her credit where it's due.
Hmm.
So, yeah, and it's just been an absolute just cleaning of house. And yeah, we'll see what comes of it. Like I said, Arcane possibly being spun off, or they'll decide what comes with that, and the other ones being spun off, and yeah, so it seems like there's going to be a bunch of reforms coming with it. This is not new with the industry. Like I said, Sony is also tightening the belt, but that's for completely other different reasons. But it seems like the industry, the tech industry, and the gaming industry especially, is just tightening the belt. Again, in the article, I believe, from PC Gamer, which talks about Sharma kind of pointing the finger at Spencer. She does kind of go into the art in an interview to kind of say that a healthy Xbox would have actually been able to better handle these whole business with the hardware increases and the whole mess that's come out of that. And if it were healthier, they wouldn't have to just raise prices as much. And the next generation of consoles, they could have maybe taken a gamble, or this generation, they could have taken a bit more of a gamble and kept the prices low to keep them, in her words, palatable to the market. So it does seem, at the very least, that she and her colleagues are aware that if you jack the price to infinity and back, nobody's going to buy the bloody platform. I wish someone told Sony that. But, so yeah, it does seem to be where things are going. So, regardless, like I said, the whole industry is tightening their belt at the moment. So this is nothing new. It's just the latest in the slew of layoffs, and definitely the largest profile one. Like I said, 2 point something percent of the Microsoft's entire workforce, which bloody hell. 5,000 almost people. That is a lot of people. And honestly, my heart goes out to them. As an unemployed fellow himself who's been looking for work for the last year in this economy, which, don't get me started. My heart goes out to all of them, and I hope they find something in this economy, because Lord knows it is a difficult job market out there. I do know. So yeah, that's kind of the show. That's a wrap, effectively, unless Justin has anything he wants to throw in there.
No, that's pretty much it.
All right, then. We'll leave you there. We'll leave you with all that information. And again, articles down in the description. Tell me what you think. Like, subscribe. You've been on YouTube, I assume, so you know how this works. So I won't bore you with the details. Have a good week, everybody.
Have a good one.